South Africa is facing a housing crisis, one that has been decades in the making. There are over 5 million people living in informal settlements, and these are the realities behind the numbers. The history of spatial segregation began with apartheid in the Group Areas Act of 1950. Over 850,000 Black, colored, and Indian people were forcibly removed and sent to live in townships on the periphery of urban cities, while white communities stayed closer to city centers. Because housing was limited and access to jobs depended on living in the city, many people built shacks in backyards of formal houses, which led to the rise of informal settlements. With democracy in 1994, however, came a new promise. The Constitution recognized the right to housing. But decades later, apartheid's legacy lives on. For many, daily life in informal settlements is characterized by hardship, insecurity, indignity, and ill health.
Barcelona has been around since 1992. It's on top of an old dumping site. So you can see over the years, as the wind is blowing, the sand is being moved from different sides with the water, that there's this level of sand, but underneath is just a dumping site. And now because of that, water doesn't sink in. It's always wet.
In the area we use one toilet, but we were maybe 7 or 8 houses.
We are living in the shacks. These are the effects of apartheid. They have taken our dignity. We are congested, and even the basic services that we are having are not in good condition.
The fact that millions of people continue to live in informal settlements in South Africa represents the ongoing housing crisis and the failure of successive governments to end spatial segregation, a legacy of the apartheid era.
And what began as a housing crisis is also now a climate crisis.
As soon as you have that 1 week of rain within the informal settlement, then you have like a little bit of sand moving along. And you have people's shacks getting water up to almost knee level.
Whenever it rains, the streets becomes wet and it becomes hard for children who are going to school. As well, it's a challenge for public service like ambulances and police. If you have a case, maybe you call the police cannot come in because the streets are flooded. Or you call an ambulance to come and help someone who is sick. The ambulance cannot come inside the area because the streets are flooded.
It has flooded twice. It was in 2022 and also this year on March. That was the hard one. Family, they lost 3 kids in the same family and also 2 old women. And one of them hasn't been accounted for right now.
This is the area where we managed to rescue some people. So if you look at this tree, this is where we tied the rope on this tree, then tied it on myself. Our main objective was to rescue people who were on the other side.
Already at the time, I think some had already been swept away, so we could see the flesh on the other side.
Residents of informal settlements who contribute the least to climate change disproportionately bear the brunt of it. People living in these areas are largely neglected by the authorities, including when it comes to disaster risk reduction. Response to flooding is inadequate and patchy, and in case of seasonal flooding, people are often left to fend for themselves. It is high time that all 3 spheres of government in South Africa take decisive action to remedy these wrongs.
With climate change intensifying floods and disasters, the danger is only rising. The South African government can no longer delay.
Governments have human rights obligations to ensure that everyone, including people living in informal settlements, have access to safe and adequate housing, sufficient water, safe sanitation, and energy to support their cooking, lighting, and other needs. Governments also have a human rights obligation to ensure that everyone, including people living in informal settlements, are protected from forced evictions and from disasters, including those related to climate change.
Doing this involves upgrading informal settlements and improving and maintaining essential infrastructure like stormwater drains, roads, and access areas.
South Africa has a plethora of laws, policies, programs, and strategies that deal with these issues. Different spheres of government need to work together and implement these as a matter of urgency and ensure that the people are able to effectively participate in decision-making processes that impact their lives.